right, so now we're going to look at the alveoli. So where the carbon dioxide is released and the oxygen is picked up. All right. So when we look at the alveoli, right? So alveoli is the terminal region of the respiratory system where all of the ventilated gas comes in from the atmosphere, right? So you have all this oxygen that's present here. So you have a high concentration of oxygen gas that's around here. It begins to diffuse out into the interstitial fluid. So this goes in here. And now through the interstitial fluid, it dissociates itself into, so it shunts itself into the blood plasma, whether it can either be dissolved in the blood plasma or enter this red blood cell for the process of oxygen binding, right? So you have all this gas, specifically oxygen, coming into the red blood cell, right? And the red blood cell has, when majority of the hemoglobin now has released all of its oxygen, right? So it's in this reduced form. The oxygen comes here and oxidizes the reduced hemoglobin, right? And then pushes for a new type of hemoglobin, which is the oxyhemoglobin here, shunting out or dissociating out the hydrogen here, right? So this hydrogen is present. So where does this hydrogen come into play now? So the oxygen is fine now, so the oxygen has picked up everything it needs. Now it just stays there until it goes all the way back to the tissue for the release. Now, if you remember from when we talked about the carbon dioxide, the way it's transferred is through, the most efficient way is as bicarbonate. Bicarbonate now, when we get to the respiratory system, specifically in the alveoli, now diffuses back into the red blood cell here. And this extra hydrogen that we had before, right, that was dissociated from this hemoglobin, combines with this bicarbonate that has diffused inside to make carbonic acid, right? And as you remember, carbonic acid is an acid that's a combination of this hydrogen and this bicarbonate group, right? Before we get to finish up the material, remember, when this ion, this positive or negative ion comes in or out of the cell, you need to maintain the electrostatic potential, right? This charge of the cell needs to be maintained, or else you'll have certain kind of homeostatic imbalances where the cell can die or they can have some kind of abnormalities, right? So before we saw that there was an exchange of ions. Here, what happens is because the red blood cell becomes more negative, you have an actual release of chloride, right? So you have another chloride shift. This time though, the chlorine goes outside, right? So now you maintain the charge of the cell, right? So again, chloride goes out, now the hydrogen and the bicarbonate combine with each other to get carbonic acid, and now carbonic acid gets reconverted back to carbon dioxide and water with that special enzyme that we had called carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase converts the bicarbonate that was created, the bicarbonate and the hydrogen that created this carbonic acid, and this carbonic acid now gets converted into carbon dioxide and water from the help of this catalyst carbonic anhydrase. Now you have this high concentration of CO2 in the red blood cell, right? And so this CO2 now needs to be released. And the way it's released is through the respiratory system, through the process of expiration, right? We let it out, right? And so here, when we look at the carbon dioxide now the carbon dioxide begins to dissolve and dissociate and goes through the blood plasma into the interstitial space where it dissolves in the interstitial fluid. And now it enters the alveoli, right? And so now you have this high concentration of CO2, this high partial pressure of CO2 that's present in the alveoli, and it's usually released through the process of expiration. So this is carbon dioxide release and oxygen pickup.